Assalamualaikum. In this video, Group 9 will be presenting about task-based language learning. So what is task-based language learning? According to Skihan 1996, tasks focus on meaning and resembles real-life situations. Participants decide which language form to use to complete a task that is goal-directed activities. So basically, task-based language learning is an approach with students' activities to actively engage in communication to complete a task. Throughout this video, we will be talking about the goals of task-based language learning, the principles of TBLL, TBLL limitation, TB teaching or learning process. Now, we will be talking about the goals of task-based language learning. So what are the objectives of TBLL? First of all, according to Willis 1996, a task is an activity where the target language is used by the learners for a communicative purpose in order to achieve an outcome. Task-based approach aims to develop cognitive and communicative skills of language learners through the activities they are performing in the class. It also aims at comprehension and production of target language as the learners perform some set of work plans given by the teachers. Another goal is to produce a more engaging and interactive environment in completing tasks, for example, group work. It also seeks to develop students' interlanguage through providing a task and using language to solve it.
TBLL Principle.
According to Noonan, there are 7 principles of the task-based language learning. First of all, scaffolding. The chosen lesson and materials have to ensure that learning can take place. Thus, the learners have to be provided with the language they need in order for the task to be completed. Next, task dependency. Each task has to be connected with the one before, which is the previous one, as the sequence has to tell a pedagogical story. When it comes to recycling, the third principle corresponds to the students' recycling of language, by which language learning is optimally facilitated. The learners can experience how the target language items function in closely related contexts and in completely different ones. Next is active learning. Active learning focuses on the premise learning by doing. As language learning is the best guaranteed if the target language is actively used, the teacher should play a more passive role as far as possible. Moving on to integration. Task-based language learning has to ensure that linguistic form, communicative function, and semantic meanings are integrated into the learning process. Thereby, the learners are able to recognize the relationship between function and form and meaning. Next is reproduction to creation. The students first reproduce the language provided by the teacher, a tape or a text, and as a next step, they are capable of using similar language items more creatively, more than what they have learned from their teachers. Lastly is reflection. Learners should be given the opportunity to reflect on what they have learned and how well are they doing.
Next, the limitations of task-based language learning, or in other words, its disadvantages or weaknesses. There are many limitations that could be identified while implementing task-based language learning in the classroom. The first limitation found is task difficulty. Students may need more time to understand a certain task if its instructions are lengthy or complicated. It could be that there is overloaded or so much information to absorb. There are tasks which require a higher level of intelligence to finish it. To put it in another way, A task which is not well designed may result in the students having difficulty to understand and finish it. The second limitation is language deficiency. The problem may occur to beginners as not all students are familiar with targeted language. Tasks such as role-play, impromptu speech, and presentation which require speaking skills, students may find them challenging to understand what the tasks demand, deliver them effectively, and obtain the desired knowledge or skills. This could also have an impact on how to use the language with the correct form. As students tend to stutter or lose confidence, they may want to finish the task as soon as possible without minding the grammar of language. Last but not least is diverse learning styles. It is known that different students require different learning needs and prefer certain learning styles. Certain tasks prescribed by the teachers may be relevant to a few students as they find the task to be fun or easy. Others may feel demotivated or become bored if they find the tasks are challenging or a waste of time.
Moving on to the teaching or learning process of the task-based language learning method. The learning process in task-based language learning is divided into 3 phases, and taken together they form a task cycle. First and foremost is known as pre-task phase. The pre-task phase of a task-based language learning method is the moment when the teacher introduces the task to the students. For example, giving them scenario, thus raising the student interest. Once they are engaged, then the teacher should set the expectation for the task and give the student clear instructions of the task. When preparing students to perform a task, teachers might help students brainstorming. It is extremely important that students understand the objective of the task during this phase. As for the second phase, which is the task phase, in this stage of the task-based learning lesson, the students will perform the task proposed. Teacher will ask students to perform the task in small groups or pairs and let them discuss freely. The teacher will only monitor the students and offer encouragement or hints if the student get really stuck. After finishing performing the task, students need to plan on how they are going to report the outcome of the task and then present it to the rest of the class. As for the last phase, which is post-task phase, it needs the student to evaluate or review their own performance. The teacher may give feedback and highlight relevant parts for the student to analyze. If the teacher saw an error common to many during the monitoring, the teacher may correct the student as it will be very useful for the student later on. And that's all from our Group 9 about the oral critique on the task-based language learning method in ELT methodology. Thank you very much for your attention and for lending your ears.